Dear Black America, and anyone, any group especially, however you want to look at it, I want to show you how not one group, as rights are only communicated to people with opinions, how that is as styles using criminally foreign influence premises treatments. Now it is necessary to understand how criminally foreign influenced is a phrase associated with the law. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal. I'm not a judge, I'm not a prosecutor. But it is recorded how originally and still it is critical evidences that were denied free speech and speech was imposed. The short words and the long words of logic without criminal foreign influences, without physical delusion, self-value, is prevented free speech. And other is pretended, and that is preventing the people with logic that's not criminally foreign influence and delusions are no at the same time, not rules, crimes, predators like the interbranch. Because every modern nation, hundreds of nations at once now, they themselves and our own governments communicate with ourselves distinctly, not distinctly and simultaneously, but they're not allowed to speak about things. Boxings, all the ways to, from, as, with, and for each identity of campus. Simultaneously, each identity of database relationship. Simultaneously, each identity of overt criminal enterprise. These were, and of that, the identities of the nations come with the identities of their systems, distinctly, non-distinctly, and how they act individually grouped together, and really with the military here too. This is not against Kuwait. This is what the Quran is about. But I have to speak because my grammar school in Wethersfield, Connecticut, interbranch when I was a kid. And all the school, I found out of sequence how our sides rolls with hundreds of nations are maintained criminally foreign influenced suits and ties counters fake sides in collusion with a breaching method here and there that everyone is victim to. But to demonstrate it, you have to demonstrate how fact-cheating natures are preventing free speech. And if you use the short words properly, if you use sequence properly, they put people to sequence shift roles because of the nature/s of identity thefts and frauds that each modern nation already took part with as victims themselves, individually grouped together. This is about how we are bound by what you by what you're defending as fact-cheating nature. You simultaneously can't. The devil knew, or an archetypal criminal enterprise is most probable and most beneficial to agree. Came from some ancient times before modern religions greatly about this. Criminally foreign influence, human fact-cheating nature. Now we have to use this phrase. So people have to keep us, this is a semantics trap, an identity trap. To care for black people, you have to care for the predicate acts delivery system method that forced color in the law. Then for this perpetual method of styles of fact-cheating nature, then defenses of that. In defense of that, in other words, as styles in relationship to nature, forcing negative value nature, progression, acts, natures, even though no one caused it, it is confined as fake sides, opinions of people A through Z of the species, identity of volume. We're in an identity of negative value nature, progression, self-value. We have a shared enemy. But everyone has it too far self-valued, not by accident. Forgiveness is not to give up. It is to allow the discernment of the predicate acts delivery system method that is clear as day as night. And vice versa, the same true conversely and simultaneously, because the identity of forever's body, at least per science, that doesn't deny. The identity of forever's body is an increasing identity of volume/S. Only the extent of it is debatable. And who debates that? Nature forces manifest their uses, self-valued of criminally foreign influence, a breaching method for self-valued. But it forces them to what then makes them, and already made that, self-valued premises treatment, sequence shifts, active fact treatment nature quality of value/value progression, not just lies. This is with all locations. For example, where the branch of the government are victims, already had to hide lies, already had to value hurt and hid from, and offensively, tricked, persuaded, everything to keep correlation nature from using its simultaneously inherent active and progressive means. Again, with sequence true and identities actually cared for. So it is necessary to have a quality of fact-keeping nature that is understanding that there were the nature of the predicate acts delivery system method. That proof of it, even though I'm not a lawyer, is how you have to have criminal foreign influence premises treatments and physical delusions. Anyone who would deny that a predicate acts delivery system caused slavery. Now you see we're all on the same page agreeing about what slavery caused it. And if we're not agreeing, now we have who's denying it, we have their defenses of that themselves as evidences, as which was propagated by that which was hurting everybody, that no one's was the fault of it, or is the fault of it. So everyone was forced to roll with it. So where they are, everyone's exception nature, where there are opinions still. This is an identity of the ground, identity of relationship to itself that is native pure. When we are positive, that is temporary positive, that is also lasting positive out to itself, we are native pure, even if we're not Native Americans. Per the system that really revealed the republic for which we stand, that really revealed proper internation relations, interhuman relations, intrahuman relations, nations each. All we have to do is claim. They're just claiming this as the nature of beliefs. We have to understand the market's positions that every modern nation is simultaneously, distinctly a victim of, even where successful. This invested all misprision and or grouped corruption, grouped as complete individuals too, corruption. Every individual of every branch of government, already still entrenched north and south. Predicate acts delivery system method. When America began the Revolutionary War's conclusion, that was only a war note, which no one saw what coming, what they were doing. No one thought they were going to have a war with England. This is a counter set up by James Madison. They need to pretend other by sequence shifting, by preventing the short words and the evidences of where and how they're preventing mandated law now. using the same criminally flawed influenced positive and negative treatments, like the simultaneously positive and negative that justice is, especially with its conclusion with the vertical and horizontal database organized crime method side of what uses that to keep further and further self-value, styles and qualities of fact-cheaping nature, pretending other, but involved with all locations originally and still with that predicate acts delivery system method against Native Americans distinctly, to keep how sickly non-distinctly against everyone from being discerned. Everyone. This is even, you could be a king or a pharaoh. This is a method that came from semi-ancient times that knew locations, areas, and states were already invested, self-valuing a quality of fact-cheaping nature. That means a quality of identities, of the identity they share. Like all the identities of our body share our one identity. Each cell, nuclear cell, body cell wall, shares its only, the cell's complete identity. Just like all the cells share a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. And you share a semi-nature relationship to other sexes, other area, people that, everyone other, individual grouped and together. And this is also with bigger than this and smaller than this, as the same identity of value per science. Per the science of observation, you have to label this value. Individually grouped and together, because we're not right next to each other, so we're not going to agree. So the ancients used Allah's name as a algebraic variable, because you just don't know what's right. In other words, there's a science of what's going to cause evolution's fruits and gifts and means from nowhere. But he uses what is the value of, and the order of the value of sequence true. It uses the value of the order. The second one is the order of the finite. How do we know it's second? We'll examine this. Because everything had to be generated. The identity of the wind became before its physical body. The identity of the chicken was before its physical body. In other words, there are three natures of zero, but there is only one nature of one, where identity is nature, its simultaneous relationship to positive and negative, and to its temporary positive where and how, more temporary positive or negative, forever's identity, its identity of relationship to itself. And the value of that is being made as of a perfect value nature progression system, perfect value progression system, perfect, and only increasing, that which enables us to discern there is one, how there is an identity that inventions work or not in relationship to it. They are further positive or not in relationship to it. This is about positive and negative. Why it's the way it is. It's about identity. It's about identity's relationship to itself. It's about the value of that because it's an increasing identity of volume as value as nature, / nature as value. And not denying the slightest exceptions. Or exception nature, not valuing that denied. So I just wanted to say, black people, this is a method that knew that all the victims this predicate acts delivery system method would make, more and more people would have to react to negative value nature progression acts and natures. Every single individual, distinctly. And what would become manifest was as fact-cheaping nature too. What was propagated was fact treatment nature styles in relationship to nature's as value slash nature. Is because this is this is invisible but still discernible. So I don't want to make this video too long. Boxing is strong. I just saw a video of with one of the heavyweight championships brother. I think they both have a heavyweight championship. A Klitschko brother saying he is George Floyd. I am George Floyd. Now see, everyone speaking against racism leaves out where people A through Z, all black and white leaders, are in collusion as victims, but where we are fact cheap in nature. They are roles with this, which I've been asking you to respond for. These are people with wire crimes with the kids and with the police interbranch locations, fabricating audio and video into databases, inter-campuses of each age and nature connected through time, and consolidated off campuses with real and made up off campuses consolidations. Now this is where and how they had sophistication before the hundreds of nations individually and grouped and together couldn't fathom what was fluent through each of that. They just could fathom an identity of job or title, abridged constitution, which is evidenced when, in other words, in relationship to things like Jim Crow laws, relationship to the words of Martin Luther King. I saw on CNN a clip on television. I saw a clip of CNN that had them, he just said, okay, forget the finite, but he was saying it like sarcastically. Not sarcastically. He was saying it with, in other words, in relationship to where individuals are prevented free speech and how. And they're forced to ignore that and not use that as evidence. Evidence of what? Evidence of the predicate act delivery system method roles. That which forced slavery. Now, where they have criminal enterprises defined, and where they have exception nature to that with wars, FISA courts, things like that, individually grouped and together, when even if you're fighting with each other, but to saying, well, that's what, you blame it on other things. You're self-valuing humanity in an identity of negative value nature progression. The only reason this is denied is because we're in value nature systems, other tied to our fact cheap nature. So of course we have victim industries themselves. And that can't afford, and that's where what everyone needs to get to survive every day to day. We need to eat every day because we're on a value nature system, the value nature system. That these were propagated tactical exterior from. And this is this is still maintained, breaching method maintained, self-cultivated, fluent through our nations, only means to do that, not for the reasons known and seen and discerned, not for money reasons, where and how that's not true, that all exceptions in exception nature demonstrate. People are only in defenses of their styles of fact-cheap nature, identities of jobs and titles, and fact treatments already. Treatments of positive and negative, including with theater, because this is connected to where and how all private is with the hundreds of nations. Not one of them is capable of affording, which each age is capable of discerning, using our actually inherent active and progressive means. One way redeems is native pure. So there's a semantics. There's a semantical predicate acts delivery system that is hurting you sickly distinctly from how it is hurting each individual of the entire species of body, of volume, where and how we have to speak about, we have to answer questions. We have obligations to make sure the questions are being answered correctly to each age of fact-keeping nature. That's why we have to have experts on such. That's why it's critical originally instilled to demonstrate how all victims are maintained. Victim predators through off-campuses actually recorded, maintained on off campuses and layers, further collusion with that from off of it, which is also further collusion with that predicate acts delivery system method. Not just an organized crime, not just a criminal enterprise, which is another organized crime term. Worse than war crimes. This is a predicate acts delivery system method that is worse than war crimes. The differences in each nation between their militaries and their regular interbranch legal systems, all differences, all exceptions in exception nature, used to prevent logic, short words, and long words. So we have to understand this in sequence too. First, how the Native Americans and everyone distinctly missed how to blame what they had to blame, which is the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, on things correctly, while not realizing how that is being exploited, where they're doing it wrongly too. In other words, the whole world, modern nations, since semi-ancient nations, since before Jesus Christ was even born, the republic for which we stand, internation sciences, already had become criminally foreign influenced. This is not just theory. Those criminal foreign influences are recorded having been self-valued. That's recorded in the evidences. That's evidences in the fact-keeping nature, opinion natures, in relationship to each serious topic, in relationship to the names of experts, how they're used, because the sequence shifts are manifest. That's evidence. How an individual could discern the physical delusion in the criminally foreign influence premises treatments of all the experts who go to speak about things like Jim Crow laws. It would have ended the problems we have now if they did it correctly. It would have destroyed industries because they shouldn't be. They are victims, but they are victim predators, industries. Same way individuals are victims, but are victim predators' roles. What made the predators be predators with slavery? Victims that forced them to be roles. With slaves, to the best, they don't want to be the worst position. This is the game that keeps perpetually all locations, areas, states manifest as uses by the identity the science is shared, distinctly, not distinctly, and simultaneously, in relationship to how they are this identity of volume /S. I tell it best, boxings. So, it is bad to have the counters to this blaming racism for the predicate acts delivery system method and for roles with its fact-keeping nature styles, because that's everyone. And if you defend that anyway. Entertain that anyway. Fake sides, all alternatives are in collusion. You're preventing a quality of fact-sheeping nature, everyone. That is necessary to demonstrate. See, if you use the word foreign. Why are you against foreign? Criminally foreign influenced is a phrase. We have to make proper legal treatments. Oh, you're not a lawyer. Same people who want to pretend they're about right, they want to pretend there's things aren't right, then they want to pretend this is how the change comes. All exceptions of exception nature are exploited. Sequence shifts, roles, therefore the roles with the styles of justifications of it. Identities, nature's needs, victim predators need to self-value that. People have to keep going on. We have to seek positive anyway. But see, now this is all through all ways in a predicate acts delivery system methods trap. As all identities semi-nature relationship to its version of positive and negative. To all locations. The identities of the individuals of each branch as styles. Grouped as styles, and together are styles, hundreds of nations at once. If the people of the locations in the states of any country or territory or nation start admitting the means that we have, inherent, active, and progressive, by what's each proper, needed to say, the words of each age of fact, sheeping nature, evolution's fruits and gifts would be here. The would be on the same page and with that gaining. Oh, why didn't we think of this? You have to use it as evidence. The identity, the ground locations with where and how they were conformed north and south. Subtle differences, overt in relationship to how it feels, but in other words, all sickly, distinctly victims to keep what they did was make everyone keep how sickly, non-distinctly, self-value for obfuscated by making everyone self-value. Quality of fact, cheaping nature, uses of words like law and justice, words like crimes, using them as like knaves, as sequence shift predators, as identity theft predators, as identity fraud predators, identity theft / fraud predators. It is worse, and the other / another semi-nature of volume of how in relationship to that, with the scientific observation of that. Because thank God, anyone who deny that uses of color with the law like that is bad, nature itself demonstrates that for us, the perfect value progression system. But this has been prevented, free speech, individually grouped in together, sickly distinctly too. That needs to pretend other offensively too. No. And this is where we have mandated law prevented from being followed. That's evidence. Increasingly. Inherent, that's sequence evidences. Inherent, every time we have sequence shifts. I've been asking since before the World Trade Center. I asked all kinds of people properly for help because Connecticut, Hartford courts, and New Britain Superior Court were involved with locations intercities, with people off those locations, also involved with on-off their locations, on-off the state judicial branch offices, which other nations are demonstrably involved with the same thing here and there. Not just because of the suits and ties, counters, and collusion, even through war. The collusion is with the treatments of positive and negative, treatments of things like religion, and where and how they have exploitations of that with the research of and the uses of the research of in the organized crime fake database stuff. It's faked into databases that is in collusion with like all positions of fact-cheating nature, formally and other inclusion, overt criminal enterprise, private one. This is not complicated. This is a predicate acts delivery system, which we're going to refer to this as an archetypal organized crime. And evidences are the crime methods. So I don't want to get her in trouble, whoever it is. I didn't ask her name, because then it's like I have to say there are already so many officers that forge names and switch names. So there's a woman who answered the phone with the Wethersfield Police today. Not 911. So I called there because they called me about a week and a half ago with a guy named Sullivan. But then they said they don't have that guy named Sullivan from town offices. But then he said it wasn't the town offices. So they're using the right to lie. These are people associated with the World Trade Center. Right before the World Trade Center was attacked, I had been inside the Ninth Circuit Court observing and favoring a plaintiff. And that was right before the World Trade Center got hit. I wasn't there when it got hit. We came home to Connecticut. That was in Manhattan. The Ninth Circuit Court is right next to where the World Trade Center towers were. So they got hit and taken out. Right before that happened, there were more people involved with both sides of that case that are involved with Connecticut Interbranch and a whole bunch of other nations, attaching people on both sides of that case /S to sequence shifts, fabricate. In other words, they post-dated the plaintiff's documents he delivered on time. It was proven afterward, from inside the court, to appear as if they didn't they hadn't been handed in on time. So they were post-dated, but they had originally been brought it to the court and time-stamped on time. That court right next to the World Trade Center. Panel of judges were shown that. That was proven afterward. That led up to a 2006 district court case in Connecticut. Before that case, and since before the World Trade Center attack, I've been trying to report things that others had asked me. Others were involved with investigations and with investigators and with vetting identities and with all forms of military and of their family members and people tied to them involved with this, again, from off campuses, from all locations, already collusion as fact-cheating nature style, and needs to and uses of that by a method that maintains that self-value, not realizing until too late. That's why and how we have to address how this is sickly distinctly and sickly non-distinctly, that each age of fact-cheating nature has representatives offensively saying whatever to prevent in collusion, preventing people with no criminal foreign influences from having corrected how they're attaching people of each age and nature to fake locations. How the interbranch locations have been fabricating audio and video. How they've been roles with jury selections, setting up juries through criminal foreign influences. In collusion with such. Now, the sequence shifting styles, uses of it, needs for it, recorded. So they have offensive methods of forging names and switching names into branch, individually grouped and together. So that's switching names. For example, this is the executive branch. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. A number of federal criminals associated with him are also confirmed involved with predicate acts on off Fox Connecticut News. They'd rather deal with it that way. I don't have any more time. I've been asking since before the World Trade Center to counter what I found out after, too. I never had conversations with the Mendez police brother, the one who said pretend I put me in quotes, pretended conversation with him on the Wethersfield police station. One of the Mendez police brothers, that's in Wethersfield, involved with a whole bunch of other police and Demora police forms and their roles with police forms, former director of the FBI, federal criminal co-defendants of him. Even if that was made up, they're family members, and the Thaddeus Skabowski, as one of them, is also, that's with on-off Hartford locations, like next to Fox Connecticut News. So then they have sense and sensibilities that want to debate overall things like this, while they're preventing the short words. True. They're preventing the sequence shifts and identity thefts. The Fox Connecticut News confirmed collusion with WFSB, attaching me and my family members to fake locations, fake ties to other people. Their roles with predicate acts with dozens of people associated in the Britain Superior Court in the Britain, Connecticut, that are intercities through time, confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed roles with vertical, horizontal, relevant predicate acts on and off the campuses I went to, including their roles since before that was found out off campuses with a child abuser principal, child offender principal. And there were more then and now that they prevented from being told on per their uses of words like crimes and charges criminally. So note how charge has a relationship to positive. But note how what slavery is about this predicate act delivery system method. That's about people that are using treatments of positive and negative as criminal insidious natures. So we have to discern the difference between positive that is actually positive and positive that is criminal insidious in its nature. See, but we need a quality of fact human nature that needs to use phrases like criminally foreign influence. And if you listen to me, I'm telling you this is fluent through our nations. We don't have to blame each other. Where they have representatives, all locations, areas, and states, with opinion natures that force that per uses of their own identity when they preventing, making opinions that are preventing people from the short words, individually grouped and together, preventing people from demonstrating how the interbranch has been forging names, switching names. That shows them distinctly and non-distinctly. Crime methods manifest. I tell it best, you need forgiveness for them because is also, so we have to have, they want us not to have forgiveness. I'm not telling you to let that guy go. That guy should have never stood on his neck like that. And he was handcuffed. You know, and see, the many reasons you need boxing, so you could discern. We have live progressions to all locations that are with the finite, active, progressive, and identity thefts, frauds, and racketeering roles, even against each agent's fact nature's correlation nature. The overt criminal enterprises, private ones, intersciences, intercampuses of each age and nature, all victims kept needing to hide the same finite, active, progressive lies, identity theft, frauds, styles. Note the phrase criminal insidiousness nature. The phrase criminal insidiousness. I'm the one who's demonstrating you. This is criminal insidious nature. This is what coined all things. Vaccines. the scientists share this, which is not only their shared identity, but that which is a self-generating identity of volume. And where and how all identities of volume have a distinct identity of relationship to themselves slash S, individually grouped and together. It is also further to how those three same identities of volume have a semi-nature relationship to our volume's complete identity of volume. We're like the parts of a body, a semi-nature relationship to the complete identity. We're like the parts of our body to it as the complete identity of us. But this is beyond our control. Why individual grouped is in our control, but not the species identity of volume. These are three distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous identities of value. As nature as value slash value as nature simultaneously, and the slash standing for semi-nature of volume also. What makes that 5 but 3 bonded, for example, is the identity of how it is. 3 identities of relationship to itself that are its one identity of relationship to itself that is self-generating. It is its identity of relationship to itself, and is the value of that which increased and which became perfect value progression. Since before there was wind, there was the identity of volumes, identity of relationship to itself, that which is at least the body of forever, per science. So, please respond so I could demonstrate to you how they have identity used. See, now this is the same way computers need to work with identity. Before, computers were an identity of the ground relationship to and as a value slash value progression. That's an abridged state of the Constitution. See, but the Constitution was always a abridged state. And this is in market systems and things like that, where we're victims still. Every modern, where we're victims shared commonly, we have quality of fact-human nature styles, as hundreds of nations distinctly not individually grouped together, that can't defend that and afford to have one modern nation, one person, use our simultaneously inherent active and progressive means as correlation nature, as trinities. Because that trinity is only bigger than us. So it's discernibly 5 semi-natures. 3 ways. And it is semi-nature 3 ways. And it is one nature as identity 3 ways. And identity is nature. Distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Because it's only part of its identity, nature itself. Nature has an identity of relationship to itself, has a value of that only increasing. See, these market positions, every individual grouping together, they can't afford to fathom other than what was set to unfold by that breaching method, sickly distinctly, north and south, east and west. More finite than and greater than any position of sophistication that was allowed to be propagated. No one had free speech. Other was pretended. So we had obligations to demonstrate how it manifests with statutes and precedents. Was collusion with that which kept that hid too, because of how the prisons were kept with their family members, already having been needing to hide the same finite, active, and progressive lies, and roles with the worst patients and criminals since before they got caught. Boxing is taught. So if I try to go into another martial art, I could probably get hurt, or you know, I could probably lose. Boxing, if we had a fair fight, I don't think any pound for pound, I think I'm the greatest fighter. I just have to train though. But since before the World Trade Center, people made confessions about in other cities' locations. That also strangers made confessions to me in relationship to people I don't know. Now this is where I have to demonstrate. I have to use the identity of the ground locations, the identities of other people's names who are strangers that were used by vetting identities then to keep now. What, for example, their roles with juxtaposed natures of organized crime, legalized for legitimate reasons, how hundreds of nations at once share like undercover with everything so they can keep their network. All locations, areas, states individually grouped together, shared. Markets, positions individually grouped together, sickly victims to keep shared. Victim predator defenses of roles with that. Shock and awe. Self-value need to self-value other people made shock and awe. Need to pretend, you know. These are rules crimes predators. These are sequence shifts. What is Jim Crow laws about? It's about identity theft. It's about identity fraud. It's not about, that's a quality of fact, human nature we use. And it's about more worse than that. Identity theft / identity fraud. That's a quality of fact, human nature we use. We don't need, it's all right someone has an opinion other, but we don't need that base. Oh, it's racism. If you guys had, if anyone had the proper fact, the answers are right there. How to reveal evolution's fruits and gifts. What was in the way of it. How it was layered through natures of organized crime, natures of evil, natures of fake, positive juxtaposed, per breaching screens, per this method that doesn't even let kings have free speech. So they have Antifa reportedly. I'll put a link to it. I watched about an article by ABC on the internet about Antifa. They said it's not a discrete group, which I believe they mean is, in other words, it's like, in other words, the way to answer that is the way to answer about what witch trials are about, even if they were made up, individually grouped and together. The branches of government were victims that needed to blame the real causes of negative value nature progressions on something, someone, or other things to react in reaction to them. They needed to react to them. And they had done that so long that they needed to hide lie progressions. They need to hide from and value hurt. Each position, each individual of each location, area, and state, sickly, distinctly prevented free speech. They had to self-value as breaching screens, tools, pretending other. Perfect world forsaken. Pretend other. Where it is not. You know. That's why lethal IDs. We could make it other. It just demonstrates. It won't. We can't do that. It's going to stay perfect, positive. That is also perfect, positive unto itself. Or it's going to force it from here. Temporary positive as criminal and ceases nature. Because we're systems other than its own, which is native pure. And so just admitting this and understanding this is reliefs. Admitting racism is admitting a breaching screen, admitting a breaching weapon used to prevent correlation natures. Connected and increasing inherent active and progressive means to demonstrate what really caused things like slavery, what really exploited it and exploits it now. So, Klitschko, maybe he beat me in a fight because he's a heavyweight champion. I don't know a lot of guys. I don't think anyone could beat him. Maybe Mike Tyson. But not in this fight. We have the same old things that are self-defeating, only a loud voice. It's all right if people have opinions, but follow mandated law and allow that used as evidence. See, we have evidence predators. Then they make allegations against people. We have to examine with the wire crime methods. There are Hartford police, other cities' police forms, state police, their family members. This is all people speaking through others. All tied to a Dillon family, too, I never had a conversation with. I don't know if they pretended other databases. There's been a lot of that. And this is also how the evidence is of how the groups are kept, the branches of the government individually grouped. They have grouped crime methods. These are not just that police officer did not act alone. He did not become that sick alone. The kids that make themselves too hard to teach, that keep themselves, they were kept too hard to teach by a breaching method that simultaneously kept the alternatives to that in collusion. Because it simultaneously kept self-cultivated what it propagated. Everyone styles blaming other things other than self where they're self-valuing the real roles to the real answers, answer/s. Prevented, simultaneous short words. Why are there shootings in areas all the time? Because those are the areas most affected by the predicate acts delivery system method. That it takes uses of phrases like criminal insidiousness to counter. It takes us being a quality of fact human nature, capable of being the words of reliefs, not in collusion with that which is only forced, originally instilled, not by our founding parents. Their identities are stolen by the people who know most about their names. We're supposed to have forgiveness. They're trying to make it hard. They're trying to start fights with us. The same people simultaneously pretending to be against it. Everyone, because of how they do this against each age of fact, human nature. We had/have the means since we're little kids to discern that and how there is a predicate acts delivery system method against the Native Americans, sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly as well, against everyone else. And that makes it, thank God, easier to discern. And that makes it, thank God, easier to discern how people who can't discern that, how and why they really can't discern it, even though, because we know they could. And that brings up what maintains that the outcome /S. For the fact-sheet nature, uses of the defenses of it. Uses of the defenses of identities. With color is uses of other people's identity. That is abridged constitution. It is preventing why and how we are, individual identity of volume, from being used. They're just stealing our free speech if we don't have collusion with sick, fake, positive politics and what they call law, sickly, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, the branches of government individually grouped together. How they are kept maintained, criminally foreign influence. This was here sophistication since before our founding parents. This was intersciences. Intersciences is what is your identity's complete identity of relationship to itself. It's not identity of the ground location. All exceptions in exception nature were converted to pretend and to be other. To get over on exceptions and exception natures coursed by our long words and short words. And logic again with no criminal foreign influences, with no physical delusions. I don't have a psychologist. There's a doctors of psychology that have fake conversations with me. There's one I went to, I had no conversation with, he got scared. There were courts. I didn't know that was the extent of it, but there were courts in New Britain Superior Court, and people associated with Hartford courts, leading up to the World Trade Center. And since they've been involved, also they were involved with the depositions with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, as the co-defendant, with ones recorded and involved with predicate acts on and off the campuses I went to with kids, through Time Connected. And those are they are recorded, actually recorded in relation. I say actually like that because individually and grouped distinctly and non-distinctly, the judicial branch and the executive branch has been fabricating audio and video on their locations, and as roles with that on off campus locations, and with military. There are people. There's a Justin Klavinskis. I barely know him, and a whole bunch of people who confessed and recorded that. And how there's a Joshua Stryker, a dean's that forged and switched names with Trinity College. They confirmed also roles with confessions from people. I never had a conversation with Charlie Bose in my life. He's another one of the names that are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the, federal criminals and a whole bunch of other nations, with roles with illusions that are also relevant because they are evidences per their life progressions and per their needs for those life progressions. Because those motivations are also relevant where I called up about things and they fabricated audio and video and how they had and have through decades uses of online platforms like Facebook, uses of them interbranch, individually grouped and together, and intercampuses for predicate acts and for of various natures, roles, and pretending other. That's what's actually recorded. Sequence shifts, pretending, making conspiracy theories against people, pretending we're making conspiracy theories, while they stack evidences where they have been preventing me and others writing criminally per the rules, crimes, methods, roles, per the Washington, D.C. manifest, intercampuses, on-off campuses roles, as victims, but as victim predators, per the World Trade Center victims, but victim predator roles on and off campuses. So they're a DeMoro family, offensively confirmed to me, in a Kerr family confirmed to me. There will